Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Galliano. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the social media manager and one of your facilitators for this Ask Me Anything workshop edition. I'm joining you from Westchester County, New York, on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Siwanoy people. I am joined today by our marketing director, Christina Osojoglu, graphic designer Molly Chow, program assistant Emily Rosenthal, and our guests of honor, Pat Cummings, Harold Underdown, and Sarah Aronson. Christina, over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Like Kat said, my name is Christina Usoljoglu. My pronouns are she, her, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi people. I am so happy to be here. Just the fact that Sarah and Harold and Pat are all in one room with us is pretty exciting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of how we're going to work today. Since we do have so many people coming in, we have the audio and the cameras muted for all who are on board except panelists. That way we can kind of put questions into the right spot. We're going to start with 2 breakout rooms. Sarah is going to head into a room with Kat, and I'm going to head into a room with Pat and Harold. And you can kind of choose your own adventure here. So if you're interested in the whole novel workshop, or if you're a novelist, probably your best bet is to head in the room with Sarah and Kat. If you're picture books or illustration, or you're a newcomer to the industry, probably your best bet is to choose the adventure with Pat and Harold. But all of these faculty have really written and done work across all genres and have been with the Highlights Foundation for a long time. So pretty much any adventure is going to be a good one. If you can just make sure any questions that you have, if they go into the chat function, that way Kat and I can see those questions coming in and make sure we pose them to our faculty members that we have on board here. We also have some questions that came in before, so we do have some questions to get us started as well, but please do feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get those answered. Then we're going to try to stay in those breakout rooms till about maybe the 1:30-ish time, depending on how many questions come in. Then we're going to reconvene back in this main room to answer some general questions. So maybe if you're new to the Highlights Foundation and really have no idea what it's like to take an online class or an in-person class, or you just want to know more about the foundation, or if there's maybe some crossover questions that you have. I know Harold is teaching a workshop later on this fall that could also be for novelists, so he could answer some questions on that, and we'll just spend some time in the general room together after those breakout sessions. I think that is all I have. Just a reminder about the recording. Again, we have the cameras blocked, but we are going to be recording these sessions. A lot of people sign up for the AMA, but it's also in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. So a lot of people watch the recordings after these sessions, and we want to make sure that those go out to those folks. Okay, so I think that Emily has the breakout rooms ready. This is the first time we've done an Ask Me Anything with the breakout room session, so we're feeling out, but I think it went pretty well so far. We had some good discussions in our room. Hopefully Sarah was the same. Before we get started into the general questions, I'll just check with Kat and Sarah. Was there any, your discussion get stopped anywhere? Anything that you need to finish up before we?
Yeah, yes. I just want to add, I just want to finish up. I'm always mid-sentence when the migration happens, like, that yes, coming to whole novel means it's a big, we're talking about big novel. We're talking about lots of pages. But we have developed a system. Before the retreat begins, we do Zooming, and we get your feedback before you get there. And then while you're there, all of the experiences are meant to help you come up with ideas, to have discussions, brainstorming, so that when you leave, you have a head start on your revision and a plan, and confidence.
And that actually kind of leads into the last question that we were talking about in our room, because somebody asked Harold to talk a little bit about revision retreat, and we were kind of talking about some differences. And Harold, you might want to chime in again to talk about revision retreat for maybe people who are in the other room. But I think that there's a key distinction between whole novel and revision retreat, where whole novel, you get whole novel feedback. It's the brain trust, very based on the actual process of critique and revision for the novel. But Harold, do you want to talk about the learning that happens in revision retreat? Because I think that's a good point of distinction.
We've always had a focus on teaching revision techniques and tools all the way from like big picture ones when you're just dealing with the first draft of your manuscript and you don't know what's going on with it, all the way through to polishing up for submission. And we really work with folks to get them thinking about what they want to do with their manuscript and which tools they want to use. We do give feedback along the way, but though we also want to end up with a plan, the plan is typically, what work are our participants going to do on their manuscript? Where are they going to go with it next? What tools are they going to apply to it? And typically during the retreat part, there'll actually be a lot of work like that getting done, and folks will then head off with ideas for the next steps. And that's very much what we try to do.
I think that all of these experiences help you. So at Whole Novel, obviously we're focused on the novel that you bring to us. But we also hope that you use the strategies and discussions and the things that we talk about for future books, and for picture books and for chapter books, that the idea of studying craft through the manuscript, with beginning with the feedback through the manuscript is not will help you moving forward with future manuscripts as well. And that is, I think that over the years, the discussions I've had at Whole Novel have definitely helped me tackle newer manuscripts and newer ideas. And I hear that from participants all the time.
We were talking in the other room too. I thought it was an interesting point about, we were talking about Crash Course because they're both online courses. Revision Retreat is also an online course. And we were talking about how the office hours were added to online courses. Like Highlights didn't offer online courses until we started, until the pandemic started, and then we offered online courses, and office hours have been an addition to those courses because to create some of that faculty student interaction or student to student interaction that happens in in-person courses, to try to make sure we have that same experience online. And I thought Harold brought up some good points about the discussions that happen in those.
Yeah. I think that at Whole Novel and every course that I teach at Highlights is that your questions are important, and the connection that we have as a class, as a group, cannot be underestimated. How important that is. That when you feel comfortable and free and safe to ask the questions that you have about writing in general or about your manuscript that you're working on, then you will be able to take steps forward. And that is our goal, is for you to feel more confident and excited about your revision, for you to have a plan, for you to know what's working. Like, too often we say, just give me the hard stuff. Well, I want to share the glimmers and to talk first about what is really working in every manuscript and where I got excited as a reader, because then we could talk about what the reader anticipates in each chapter and how we're going to move that forward with pacing, with time, with character, and all those kinds of things will be addressed in the lectures. So I don't know. I love it.
Harold or Pat, do you want to say anything about what you most love about your courses or what you're most excited about? Because I have some logistical questions, but sometimes they're not nearly as fun as talking about philosophy. And I think you both bring a lot of interesting philosophy to the table in terms of working with authors and illustrators.
One of the things I would want to say is that that one-on-one is really important, because we're talking generalities. In a sense, we're going to present information that applies across the board if you want to illustrate. But when you get in the one-on-one, it's your project that we're talking about. And there are going to be quirky things, and there's going to be things that just don't come up in other projects, that you want to address, or your sensibilities will be different. And so we have to address that, and you have to find a way, because to me, the ideal thing is to be able to take what you love, you personally love, put it in a book that works for kids. You
Right.
know, and so everybody has a different orientation and different sensibility about what they love, you know, and that's what we're going to try and do with the one-on-ones in particular, is to just focus down on your project.
Yeah.
When I think about, as a writer, when I'm working on something that I love, like I'm excited, like I'm, you know, my writing is better. I feel more confident. So we want to know what you love about your manuscripts so that we can begin the dialogue from the strengths, as opposed to just talking about what needs to be fixed. You will leave. I mean, I feel that this is something we could say about all highlights events, that you will leave the event with community, with enthusiasm, with goals, and with ways to achieve those goals.
I just want to say a couple things that I always like about the crash course as it's been evolving over the last couple of years. We came in with a structure and a curriculum that had been working in our in-person course, and we made a lot of adaptations and changes and adjustments to turn it into a workable online course. We'd actually been planning that before the pandemic. And what's been really interesting is that we've now given it, I'm sort of losing track, I think 7 times at least. And every time it has been different. And it's not just different because I've updated it or I've made a change because of something that I realized needed to be, presented differently. But every time we go through the course evolves partly in response to the questions and the interests of the class members. And that comes out in the class sessions themselves. It comes out in the office hours. And so literally every time it happens, it's a different course. And it becomes the course that the participants need it to be. And I love that.
And I was just, sometimes even when the course description is already planned, things get added, guests get added. So like Science and Nature is a workshop that's coming up at the beginning of June, and the schedule just got finalized for that. And there's a huge editor coming, and there's all these, the course has really blossomed. So that's a good point as well.
We all at Whole Novel, we wait to decide what our lectures are going to be on until we've read the whole novels. And then we sit down and talk and say, okay, what do we think this cohort will appreciate hearing? And that extra layer of specificity helps the writers, again, to be in an environment where all of us are going to be motivated.
That's a great point too. Okay, I'm going to get to some logistical questions that we had that came in before. Again, if you have any last minute questions that are coming in, feel free to drop them in the chat. And Kat, could you keep an eye on those for me and make sure to pose them if we need them to come through? Again, I said yesterday we had that scholarship AMA, and a lot of questions came in. One of the biggest questions was, are all the courses on the schedule for 2022 yet? And the answer is no. There's still courses that are being added. Most of the in-person ones are up on the schedule, but there's a lot of online courses that are being added over the course of the year. So check back for those. And also, Kat, if you could drop in the link to the ambassador form on there. We have a wonderful person on our team named Rona. She couldn't be here today, but she serves as a Highlights Foundation ambassador. So if all the listening that we did to Harold and Pat and Sarah today, if there's maybe these courses aren't quite the exact fit for you, but if you're interested in learning more about a Highlights Foundation course that is, please feel free to use that and connect with Rona to help discover the course that will work best, and keep checking the schedule because more comes up. The revision retreat that Harold was talking about, that's not up on the schedule yet, but it's coming up in the next week or so here. So look for that. Another question we've gotten a lot is, are there openings for personal retreats on campus? So the answer is yes. We have availability that it depends on what's else is going on campus, whether there's another workshop, whether there's space or things like that. But our website has a great page on that. And if you make an inquiry, we'll be happy to help you figure out flexibility for dates for that. And another question that has come up a lot recently is having to do with transportation. If you don't have a car and you live in New York City or Philadelphia, how do you get to campus, either for a workshop or a personal retreat? Or if you're coming in by airplane or something like that. We just updated the transportation page on our Barnes & Boyds Mills website, which is where we host all the Highlights Foundation workshops that are in person. And I know even for our team, they learned new ways of getting to the Highlights Foundation campus that they hadn't used in the past. So I would recommend checking that out as well. Okay, shooting to end around 1:45 Eastern, and it's just about that time. We'll leave a couple seconds if there's any more questions that come in, but any closing words, Harold, Pat, or Sarah, that you would like to share with our group before we leave? I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to say anything if you don't have anything else to say, but I just wanted to open it up for you.
I think we're all pretty chatty. So.
Yeah. Sure, everybody can come up with something for sure. But Pat, you want to start us off? Any closing thoughts?
Sure. I just hope to see some of you or all of you at the workshop. Because first of all, I love children's books. And if you love illustrating, and this is something that you really want to get into, or you want to work on, this is a good opportunity to do it, because you're just going to be exposed to a lot of information and a lot of people who can really, really help you move your illustration along. There's so much that goes into it that is emotional and is personal and is delightful, that I love workshops like this, and you'll be surrounded by people who also love doing what you love doing, which I think is really important if this is something you want to do. The arts is not an easy thing to work with, certainly not an easy field to pursue. And it helps to have friends who are there for you. And this is a really supportive workshop. This is a supportive business. So hope to see you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. And Sarah, do you want to go next?
Do you need a book bubby? We can be your book bubbies. We are here. Like, what we want across the board is to help, is to create what Pat was talking about, a great supportive community, a community that feels safe, a community that feels supportive and exciting, where everyone who comes, which always happens, wants to help each other. Writing a novel is a long, solitary process, but it never really gets finished all by yourself. You need your community. So please, if you have a novel, I want your novel. I can't wait to read your novel. I can't, it is, there's nothing I enjoy more than the month of August and talking to writers about their dreams, their hopes, what they want to talk about with kids, and how are we going to say it in the best way.
Great. Thank you. And Harold, anything else?
I actually want to just pull a question out of that I just noticed in the chat. Pull that out because Christina answered it, but I think Pat may have something to add. Someone asked, what should we prepare before the start of the illustration crash course? Should we write the story first? And I know you had a plan for folks who wanted to prepare portfolio pieces, what they could do if they didn't have their own manuscript.
Okay, yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to work on a piece during the workshop. And I think that the public domain stories are an excellent resource to go to, because when you have a story that is been done again and again and again, you might think it's not worth revisiting, but kids keep getting born. There are new kids coming all the time. And so going to the classics is not a bad idea, because for one thing, you will be working with a known narrative. Every editor, every art director who sees it is already going to know if you're working with Little Red Riding Hood. We're not going to work with Little Red Riding Hood, but everybody would know that story. So when you actually work on an illustration, they will be able to see, how do you think? How do you interpret this known narrative? But you don't have to supply the story. Do you know what I mean? So it's really handy sometimes to dig around in public domain stories. Even like you see what's been done with Shakespeare and Jane Austen in the movies. So for crying out loud, revisit some of the classics. Yeah, Sarah.
Pat, do you ever work with writers who are trying to use illustration to take the next step with their writing?
Interestingly
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, no, it's rare. Do you know who was it? Cynthia Ryland started illustrating. And when she said she was going to start illustrating, we're like, what? But why not? I think you can work in any style. And the thing that has always impressed me is I've had writers come to my classes who do thumbnails. They do thumbnails and they lay out their story because they said they want to make sure that they're giving the illustrator something to work with in each scene. And it's not just, static. So I think that a lot of writers think visually, but it's a bigger step, it seems, because we all grow up writing. You have to write in class. So for illustrators to write, it doesn't feel too foreign. But for writers to go the other way, it is kind of a leap of faith. But yeah, I've run into that. I had a writer who would come and sit in on my class because she wanted to illustrate a book. And she kept on pitching this illustrated book. And in the end, she sold the book, but not the illustrations. But she could. But that's everybody's experience. And I think we all need to understand that. Almost always, except for those those people who you will run into, who the first book they presented, they got it published. Those people, if you don't drag them out into an alley and beat them up, that's fine. But for the most part, it's always a struggle. Your first book is always like you go through the ringer. No is kind of if you stop at no, you're not going to do this. That's all there is to it. You really have to be the type who loves it enough to persevere.
Determination is way more important than talent.
It's when this is what you want to do, And so for writers who want to illustrate, of course they can do it. When I see, what is that? The Wimpy Diary of a Wimpy Kid, come on. It's like doodles. Or when or Hervé Toulet's book, Press Here with the dot, it's a dot, So I think all styles work. And if you're a writer who wants to illustrate, yeah, why not? Why not? But you really have to have the stomach for it, And I got to tell you real quickly, I met a 10-year-old girl after a program I had done. Her mother had tears in her eyes. And I was thinking, oh no, what have I said that was, upsetting? And the woman said, I've done everything to stop my daughter from wanting to be an artist. She was 10 years old. She said, I don't get her supplies. I don't encourage any workshops. I really don't want her to do that because I don't want her to be like, a starving artist. That horrible phrase, starving artist. But the whole time she was talking, that little 10-year-old was standing there going, yeah, she did that. Yeah, she tried that. Yeah. But that kind of spirit, you don't see it last, when you have so much coming at you, telling you that you can't do this. If everybody else in the world is telling you can't do something, you don't need to be the one doing it. You need to be the one telling yourself, yeah, I can do it. Why not? Somebody else did. And if you love it, that's to me all the reason you need to pursue something, in the arts. I mean, as opposed to like mass murder or something. I'm just clarifying because I don't want it to be misconstrued, But no, but that's like you're saying, Sarah, that's what drives it. Your passion for it and your perseverance, your dedication to it, and to not let yourself get discouraged.
And that's, when you're with a group of people, you're never going to get discouraged because everyone is going to lift you up. Everyone is helpful. Everyone is cheering you on. And you're going to find a new enthusiasm for what you love, a new purpose. And that is something that all of us on the faculty strive for, is for every single person to leave feeling like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, but Sarah, you made a really good point because I know there are some loners out there. And, I was like anti-group and joining things like that. But when I wanted to write a middle grade novel, I realized I'm not going to do it by myself. I actually had to form a group around myself to make myself every single week accountable for something and to get some feedback, because above all else, this is a communications medium. You're
That's right.
communicating, and it's one thing to
Important.
put it out. You got to understand how it's being received.
Important for extroverts as well, for the rare extrovert. Hello, anybody with me? That listening, the art of listening and gathering and being patient can be really hard for us extroverts. But you're going to learn. We are going to all talk about that and think about strategies for what do you do when you get a confusing piece of feedback? I'm a big believer in side writing. I could talk about side writing all day long about how I discover new things this way. It takes the temperature down a little bit and helps you see the possibilities and feel and just get those goals in mind.
I'm hesitant to stop this conversation because I'm loving it, but I think we're nearing the end of our time here. There are only 8 spots left in the illustration course. So if you want to join Crash Course for Illustration, make sure you do sign up for that course shortly. I think you might have talked about this in the other breakout room, but the whole novel deadline is approaching. It's May 20th, right, Sarah? The application.
Yep.
Got it. So just wanted to keep those on our radar. And yeah, and the revision retreat description is coming up soon. The traditional crash course description is already up on the website, but that is not until the fall. So there's still some space left in that one, but do sign up for that one if you're interested. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really wanted to thank Harold and Pat and Sarah for planning this with me and coming and spending time with everyone today. I enjoyed it for sure.